Hello, San Angelo, and welcome to the Live Daily News Show. I'm James Bouligny.
And I'm Tessa Koskovich.
In news today, a hospital in the Concho Valley is changing things up a bit.
We know where Tom Green County ranks in money spent on OnlyFans.
And we've got some of the biggest storylines heading into the UIL realignment.
For our interview, James sat down with ASU's athletic director, James Reid, yesterday, so we'll get into that right after this message from Jim Bass.
Right now at Jim Bass, scan our QR code and find great deals on cars and trucks. Right now, you can get a brand new 2024 Nissan Rogue for just $399 per month. That's right, just $399 per month.
You can only get deals like this at Jim Bass Nissan, Houston Hardin Road, or 24/7 at bassbutts.com, or use this barcode.
Todd, it's QR code.
That's what I said, QR code.
What's going on, everybody? James Bouligny here with Mr. James Reid, Coach James Reid.
Yeah, Coach.
The athletic director at ASU. Coach Reid, how you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me again.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
So we're kind of out of last year. We're out of football and everything. Basketball's been going on, but we got some spring sports coming up.
We do.
Let's just talk about it.
This is when we have our second big overlap of the year. You know, in the fall we have a little bit of overlap when our basketball and everything starts, and football and soccer and volleyball and everything are still going. But this is when we get our biggest overlap, where we have all of our spring sports as well as our winter sports still going. And so everybody kicks off this weekend, which is kind of unusual. Now, there's only one team that's at home, but everybody else will be on the road. But it is our first weekend for softball and baseball and golf and tennis, and indoor track's been going, but they're on the road again this weekend at a big meet in New Mexico. So I don't know. You know, softball is coming off one of their better years last year, finished third in the conference, and they came in preseason ranked third. In the conference. They are preseason by the National Fast Pitch Coach Association, has them 13th in the country. So that's exciting about that. They get to start on the road. They go to what's called the D2 Fast Pitch Invitational. It's down in Conroe, Texas, outside of Houston, and they'll get to see some competition that we normally wouldn't see. They get to see they have 5 games over 3 days, and they'll see some teams from not around here. So Simon Fraser, which is up in Canada, we'll see them there in the Gignac, and Emporia State and some other schools that are close, but not that we see regularly from that standpoint. And so excited about them getting going. One of the high points, Tatiana Trotter, outfielder for us, was TAD preseason Player of the Year for the Lone Star Conference. So Coach Scott and them have they've been practicing, and feels pretty good about his group. And so we're excited about them getting going. First chance we'll get to see them at home will be the next weekend, the 6th, 7th, and 8th. Of February, and that's our ASU McCorkle Challenge. And so again, 5 games over 3 days, and you know, softball starts fast and furious. They get their record will be up there pretty quick, and hopefully they get a lot of good wins and be able to set themselves up to start conference play in a strong place from that standpoint. So.
I know. I think because baseball's been so successful, softball kind of gets overshadowed, but they're just as good. You know,
they're consistently, one of the top programs in the country. Obviously, they've got a national championship under their belt from 2004, and we're national runner-up in 2018, I believe, and we're at the World Series back-to-back years, 17 and 18. And so they're consistently there, and so we're excited about that. And Coach Scott, they do a wonderful job each and every year, and are obviously contenders in the Lone Star Conference every year. We're just in one of those crazy conferences. UT Tyler's coming off back-to-back national championships,
right.
And then WT is always right there as well. But it's one of those deals where we talk about with a lot of our sports that if we can weather the storm of our conference, then we got a chance to go deep into the NCAA playoffs, and they do most years from that standpoint.
Now, you mentioned playing a lot of teams that y'all don't normally play. Does that excite you as an AD? Did that excite you as a coach?
It does.
Against different
I think one of the things that we aspire, our vision is to be a premier NCAA Division II institution. And so to do that, you have to be in a national conversation in everything.
Right.
Not just as a campus, which we have nationally renowned academic programs on our campus, which is great, but your sports teams have to be known across the country. And we get that in the postseason. Obviously if we end up at the World Series or you end up the Elite Eight like volleyball did last year, people are seeing your name that might not know even where San Angelo is. And so the opportunity to play some teams out of state That's why we see our golf teams will travel, during spring break. Tennis will travel during spring break and try to play some of those teams. So it's a great opportunity for Coach Scott and his crew to get down there and be able to stay in the state but play some teams that are out of state.
All right. So we kind of talked about softball. Let's go talk about baseball. Kevin Brooks still out there.
Coach Brooks
doing his thing.
Oh yeah, they had a big turnover last year. We lost had a lot of seniors last year, right. And so for any coach in any sport, when you have a big turnover, it's that you spend most of your time trying to build that identity of the team. Angelo State baseball is always going to be Angelo State baseball, and Coach Brooks is always going to be Coach Brooks. But as you get new people in, it's still a new team. It's a different team, and so being able to mesh the returners with the newcomers to be able to find their identity as a 2026 Rams baseball team, find out what they're going to be able to do. Right. But Coach Brooks and his staff do a wonderful job, and in our kids that are here at ASU, they understand what we're about. They do a good job of talking to them in the recruiting process of what our expectations are, what our standards are, and kids that end up here, they understand that, and you hear it in the recruiting process, but once they get here and get into practices and things like that, then they have an opportunity to really understand what it all means. And so, that's always the big question mark going into the season, and that you really don't know how that team's going to be and react and respond and take on that identity until they're in the heat of battle. And so, opportunity to start this weekend for them. They go on the road. They go to UT Permian Basin and play UTPB, the Falcons. And, it's the last couple of years we've had to open with UT Tyler, and so it's been kind of a crazy – because you get that litmus test early. Right. Two of the better teams. We've got 1 week reprieve this year because we come back home the next weekend, the 6th, 7th, and 8th, and when we catch UT Tyler, and so which have been two of the dominant teams in the conference for the last several years. And so, I think that's the big question mark is finding out, what this identity is going to be. But I know that those guys do a wonderful job recruiting, and like I said, the kids that end up here, they get a good understanding of ASU. Problem is with our conference is all of our games are conference games. So, in other sports where you get to play that non-conference schedule, right. You kind of get your feet wet, you kind of get that identity right. before you have to start on that conference pathway. And of course Coach Brooks and them are trying, they're defending Lone Star Conference regular season and tournament champions, so they'll be trying to defend that title. And in baseball we just have to start right away, right out the box. So you got to take care of those games that you're supposed to take care of for sure to keep yourself on a path to do that.
No, like when you have big turnover, you're always trying to find new leaders, hoping some of them young guys step up and be those leaders on the team, so you have them a little bit longer.
Exactly.
No, that's got to be fun trying to identify those players.
Well, I think it's interesting. I'll say
right.
that.
Fun might have been the wrong word.
Well, no, it's fun. It's fun, but it is interesting. As a coach, coached many years, and that is the challenge of finding out who is going to be that leader on the team. Who's going to be the one that's going to carry the torch for you. Obviously the coaches can say it time and time again, and they can preach the message, but it doesn't carry as much weight as it does when right. a student athlete does it, one of the team members. And we always knew that I had a great team when I had those team leaders that were holding kids accountable and holding them to the standard that we have here at Angelo State University. And so it's always interesting to see who that's going to be. A lot of times it might not be the best player. It might not be that preseason right. Player of the year pick. It's right. Maybe a bench player or one of those supporting roles that doesn't get a lot of spotlight, but they're the ones that have the respect of the team and are able to rally the troops and get to where they need to be.
Yeah, we did our back when we first did our first Cover One awards, I would ask coaches for honorable mentions. You know, and I said I don't want the kid that, I want the kid who shows up early, stays late, and goes 100 miles an hour in practice, is always working hard. He doesn't have to be the 12th man or anything like that. He could just be a bench player. But that's what I want. I wanted to highlight those kids. Because a lot of times there's, especially at these small schools, they do kind of go unnoticed and everything. That was what I was trying to identify. And I feel like that's what you try to do when you have a team. And even though he might not be a big-time player, he could still be a leader.
Well, I think if you talk to any coach, and I learned this from my dad, who was a coach for over 40 years, you're going to have your main characters, and you're going to have your supporting cast. And the key, I think, for a great coach is they do a wonderful job of making sure that every single person on the team understands their role on the team and the importance of their role on the team. And I think that is something that, as a coach, you've got to be able to master. You've got to be able to make sure that the kid that's not starting or not playing even understands that their role in a practice situation is just as important as if they were on the court or the field on game day. And you know, if you can do that, because that's who the starters are seeing every single day, and you know, and when that's who's challenging them to get better, and you know, we all need that. You know, even your stars we want them to continue to get better each and every day, so they've got to be challenged, and somebody's got to do that. And so that, I think, is a very key piece to being a successful coach, is being able to make sure that everybody on the bench, from one to whatever the sport is to the last one, they understand the importance of their role on the team.
I 100% agree with that. 100%. We got tennis, golf. We got some other stuff.
Oh yeah, tennis is our only sport that's going to be at home this weekend. So they open up on Friday tomorrow at 3, and they're playing Weatherford College, so they get their spring season going. Golf and tennis are a little different because they can actually compete in the fall and in the spring. Their championship segment is just in the spring. So Coach Potoff and his group, they came off a good fall season. Had some kids that made it to the ITA regionals and one to the nationals, and so. That was exciting for them, and they'll try to carry that momentum into this year. It's just crazy because we don't get a lot of home matches, so try to get out there anytime we're there and see them compete. But they're been hard at work, obviously, all year, and they're ready to get things going as well. And golf also, although it's not this weekend, they travel Sunday down to Austin, and they'll play in a tournament on Monday and Tuesday to get their spring season going as well. So I'm excited about that.
And then I guess we can kind of look back at football real fast. Y'all just promoted a new offensive coordinator.
Yes,
what do y'all think?
Coach Kilmer, had done a wonderful job for us for many, many years, and had a great opportunity at a Power 4 Division I school, and so obviously made that jump, and we're excited for him and thankful for everything he did for us. But our longtime assistant, receivers coach, recruiting coordinator, Jason Johnson's been here for 9 years, I think now, and has just done a wonderful job, not just in his role, but in the recruiting process and getting the right kids to Angelo State University and just mentoring and growing those kids. And so we were very excited that Coach Gersh was wanting to promote him and give him an opportunity to be the offensive coordinator. And we're excited about the things that he's going to be able to do on that side of the ball.
All right. I'm talking about bringing kids in next week, signing day.
Yes, so next Wednesday is National Signing Day for football, and Coach Gersh and them have been on the road, obviously having some kids on campus. Had one weekend, this past weekend with all the weather, we kind of had to postpone and move some kids around, obviously, because they couldn't get here, but have had some really, really good high school kids on campus for us and have had a lot of commits already. And so on Wednesday at Shenanigans that evening, we're going to do our reveal show, if you will, and Coach Gersh will go through and talk about all of our signees and talk about the future Rams that they have. But, they've done a great job the last several years. It's kind of a crazy world right now in NCAA athletics. There's a lot of schools that don't recruit a lot of high school anymore. They're in the portal. That's the only place they recruit.
Portal has been absolutely
That's
nuts.
the only place they recruit. And so what it's done is, it's opened up some kids that maybe are a level above what we are normally used to getting right out of high school. And and so it's created some excitement for us. What we've been able to do is the retention rate of our last few classes has been wonderful. Of those incoming freshmen. And so as you get that higher caliber kid coming in initially and then being able to retain them, and they get on the field a lot sooner. So you'll see some redshirt freshmen this coming year that are going to be on the field because of the quality of last year's class and the development that they've had. So we're excited about that, and obviously intend on seeing the same thing out of this year's class, and maybe even a couple that can touch the field earlier than their redshirt year. So but
now, we talked about this we didn't talk about this, but Paul and I were kind of discussing it during playoffs in football. We're talking about, man, we got to go. I had to drive all the way to Hutto. And it's not that I didn't want to. I did. I was covering Junction.
Right.
And I was just looking at some of these, teams. I'm like, man, they have to travel quite a ways, and they pass by these, colleges. They go play at these places that might be more halfway. I'm like, has ASU ever considered opening up LeGrand for a high school Playoff game?
I get calls every year.
Okay.
You know, one of the things that we're inhibited by right now is we don't have a two locker rooms.
Okay.
Two separate locker rooms.
Okay.
To be able to bring in two teams that don't involve ASU. So
Right.
we're able to play on campus. When the Janelle Center was built, you know, we weren't playing football on campus, so the construction of it didn't keep that in mind. And so we've got some plans to try to, you know, hopefully in the near future, create a space where we can do that. But I get calls every single year, and we would love to be able to host some games because we feel like we've got a really neat stadium, and there's especially in some of the, you know, 3A and 4A and lower classifications
Right.
that are looking for places in this area, especially in the early rounds. And but I get calls every year, and unfortunately I have to say I'm sorry,
Right.
we're not available just because we don't have the ability to house two separate teams that don't involve ASU. I don't know if it makes sense to you, but
No, that makes sense.
and
It
so
absolutely does.
if we're going to do something, we want it to be top notch in class. And so until we can get that kind of prohibits us a little bit from being able to do that.
No, I know San Angelo State, you can hit it with a rock from
Right.
campus and everything. It's right there close by, and it's not that big a difference. But I was like, man, it'd be a really good idea for some of these teams who are maybe trying to recruit a kid.
For sure.
If they're coming through, like, hey, come visit the locker room, play on our field.
And we do. We try to, you know, anything we can host, we try to host because, you know, that's the purpose and the mission of the university is to, you know, get kids here and recruit kids. And so anytime we can get any high school kids or even little kids on our campus, which we do through camps and things like that, to try to introduce them to Angelo State as early as we can.
Right.
But especially in those playoff settings, you know, you'll see we'll host some high school playoff games over the next few weeks as they start having that, and that's good exposure for us for those kids to be able to get into the Janelle Center Stevens Arena and play some games there, and hopefully get a look at Angelo State University, and hopefully, you know, whether they come to compete in athletics or just come to be a student, we want them to come to Angelo State.
You know, it was just a conversation we had. Like, man, because we were talking about other, you know, maybe these smaller schools or maybe D1 schools that we were talking about. That'd be cool if they opened up the stadium for a couple games that
Right.
weekend if they were
Well,
looking for somebody. And
you know,
it wasn't just necessarily about, I mean, why isn't ASU doing it?
Right.
It was,
No,
it
I
was
mean,
more of-
as a high school football player in Texas, I mean, I remember playing on college campuses. You know, playing at the University of Texas in the playoffs was awesome. You know, and
Right.
being able to play in Baylor Stadium and Floyd Casey and Waco and you know, all over down in that part of the state on those university campuses. It was neat and a great opportunity for me to be able to do that, and I think it is a great opportunity for those kids to be able to do that, and we will at some point.
Right.
We'll be able to get to where we can host football games. Right now, we just try to host as much as we can,
Right.
whether it's volleyball, which we do, or basketball. We have some softball teams that will utilize our stadiums, and baseball along the way. So, but that's our biggest reason right now is we don't feel comfortable with the facilities that we have, that it would be our best foot being put
Right.
forward from that standpoint.
I get that 100%.
So, but we want to.
Well, that's good. It was just not because I know ACU does it. I've been to ACU.
yeah.
Not that Hutto wasn't a beautiful stadium. Not that
Right.
Stephenville's new stadium isn't beautiful. They are, but I'm like, man, it'd just be. What if Tarleton wanted to say, hey,
Right.
come here, you know? And I just thought it'd be an opportunity, you know, to
And
just get more
San
eyes on
Angelo,
kids.
they get a lot of playoff games, especially in the early rounds. And you know, when people call me, I always send them to SASD, but usually they're like, well, they're booked. You know, they got
Right.
games on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and so I send them to anybody in this area because it's still, you know, what they're trying to do is find that neutral site to be
Yeah.
able to play. And
That's
our
the
stadium is a great size. You know, we obviously don't have the capacity that San Angelo Stadium does, but for those teams that are traveling and looking at crowds from that 3,000 to 5,000 range, you know, we would be a perfect fit for them.
All right.
So
Well, Coach Reid, did we miss anything?
I don't think so. I think we touched on everything. Well, we've got our indoor track still
I
going,
apologize.
and they're on the road this weekend. They go to Albuquerque. We've got an indoor meet there at the University of New Mexico, and so they're prepping. We've got a lot of kids that are top 10 on the national list right now, and doing some great things. Their conference meet will be at the end of February, and then they'll transition to outdoor, except for those that have qualified for indoor nationals, which will be in mid-March. But it's a busy time for all of us, you know, and
Oh, yeah.
just hope everybody can get out and come watch our kids compete and everything when we're at home.
Absolutely. I know. I didn't like running track, but it was so important for every other athletic program out there that.
Well, I was a track
important,
coach, so
I know you.
I won't take any offense out of that.
No offense meant, but no, it was one
No.
of those things that you did because it just kept you in shape and it
Right.
kept you going, and it was one of those things. And
Well, I just think we're blessed at Angelo State to have the number of sports that we do that kids can, in many different sports, say, hey, I've got an opportunity to go there and compete. And so been very blessed over the years to have administration that supports us from that standpoint to be able to provide those opportunities to our student athletes.
all right,
But great place.
yes, sir, it is.
So, well, thank you.
Yes, sir. We appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Back to y'all. Into the news, the Concho County Hospital District has approved converting Concho County Hospital into a rural emergency hospital to preserve local healthcare access amid ongoing financial pressures facing rural hospitals. Under the new designation, the hospital will continue 24/7 emergency care and a wide range of outpatient services, but will no longer provide inpatient hospitalization, transferring patients who need extended stays to other facilities.
The decision followed an analysis showing very low inpatient use compared to high emergency and outpatient demand, and the hospital expects to complete the conversion, by summer of 2026, pending state and federal approval. The move reflects broader challenges across rural Texas, where hospital closures remain a concern despite recent state legislation and grant programs aimed at stabilizing rural healthcare systems.
New data from OnlyGuider shows Texas residents spent $248.5 million on OnlyFans in 2025, ranking the second state nationally, with Tom Green County placing 36th statewide at $864,182 in total spending. Per capita, Tom Green County spending was slightly below the state average, while nearby counties like San Saba exceeded it.
Several smaller counties trailed well behind. The highest per capita spending continues to come from sparsely populated oil-producing counties, particularly in the Permian Basin, shocker, where high wages, isolation, and transient workforces drive outsized numbers. OnlyGuider's analysis indicates this pattern persisted in 2025 as OnlyFans' global revenue surpassed $7.2 billion, reinforcing the link between remote energy work and elevated digital spending. That's disgusting. Find a hobby.
What do you think about that?
Find a hobby. Don't complain about your bills when you're paying for OnlyFans. Find a hobby. Seek the good Lord.
I agree with a lot of that. But these guys are out there by themselves. They don't have anything going on. They're 100
You know
miles
what I do
from.
when I'm bored? Whenever I'm out on the ranch,
I'm
2
not-
hours from
I'm-
town, you know what I do? I paint.
I'm not defending it, but
I paint and I go outside.
there isn't a lot for those guys to do up there.
Connect with nature. Not your parts. Connect with nature.
All right, and the UIL realignment will release Monday and could bring major changes to Concho Valley football programs with uncertainty across multiple classifications. San Angelo Central faces the most volatility in 6A after Friendship dropped to 5A, potentially forcing district reshuffling or long-distance travel, while Lakeview is again searching for viable 4A Division I district partners after losing most of its former rivals.
Wall is moving up to a 3A Division I following its state title run. Grape Creek becomes the lone 3A Division II team in the area, and Brady's enrollment dropped to a 2A Division I, opens several regional possibilities. Sterling City is set to return to six-man football, likely renewing traditional rivalries, but as always with UIL realignment, surprises remain possible until districts are finalized.
Everybody is concerned about Central going to the Metroplex and playing teams in the Metroplex for district. As far as Lakeview goes, I think Big Spring either dropped, so they're in a 3-team district right now if it was the same as last year, so they're going to have to find somebody else to play. Might jump out toward that Brownwood area depending on where they fall. Wall, they're moving up. It would make sense for them to play Jim Ned. There's a lot of rivalry there. It's a good rivalry. That'd be a good district for them to be in. That's what I would hope to see them in. And then Brady moving down, that certainly helps their, playoff chances next year. Moving down, they could play Mason. Mason's, you're in that same area. That makes a lot of sense for them to play Mason. And to Sterling City. Sterling City is moving back down to 6-man. They were playing a weird schedule. Their varsity was playing, their varsity was playing an 11-man schedule, and their junior varsity or their JV or their junior high was playing a 6-man schedule, so they knew it was coming. They were going to end up moving back down. Now they're back probably in that same district with Water Valley and Robert Lee. I know that I'm speaking an entirely different language to you right now.
You certainly have a lot to say on this story compared to the...
But Paul Harris and I are going to be out there at Region 15 next Monday, so we can get interviews and everything with all the coaches, and we'll have all of their instant reactions coming out, and it'll be a lot of fun. But we'll get into weather after this message from Jay Chandler.
It's hard to believe how reckless some people can be and how hard they fight against real victims. You need a partner who consistently beats the Giants and who will never, ever flinch.
Into the weather. Well, we survived the cold.
For now.
Did you survive?
I'm here. I'm kicking. I wasn't a happy camper, but I'm kicking.
They kind of made it seem like it was the second coming of the apocalypse. They really compared it to Snowmageddon from a few years ago.
You know what? I don't really blame people for comparing it. Just because our grid's not built for it. Ice, a quarter inch of ice weighs hundreds, if not 1,000 or 2 pounds. Correct me if I'm wrong. It equals 190 gold retrievers. I know that much. But like, we're just not built for it. That's the only comparison I have. I'm sorry. We're just not built for it. So it's like, I'm so glad that it didn't turn into another snowvid, as my father calls it. However, it could have happened.
You know, I think when people saw Ted Cruz get on that plane, everybody was like, oh, no, it's going to be bad. Each day, I had to go take care of something in the morning and throughout the day and everything. And the first day, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. The roads were terrible, but I drove maybe 20, 25 all the way around, never slid around once. I only slid around when it started to melt on Monday or something like that.
We told the people to only leave during an emergency.
This is something I had to do. Today's high is up around 58, and tonight it cools down to around 25. Still below freezing. Good news, it doesn't stay that way. Over the weekend, highs will be in the 40s and upper 50s on Saturday and Sunday, and lows will be 25 and 34 respectively, so right around the 32 degree mark. Saturday, however, wind chills could be in the 17 to 27 range, so bundle up tomorrow morning.
Beginning next week, the lows start to rise a bit. On Monday, the high will be 64 degrees, and there will be some clouds out. Then Monday night, the low drops down to 47. We could have some wind, as gusts are up to around 25 miles an hour. On Tuesday, those calm back down to around 10 miles an hour. The high will be 66. The sun will be out, and Tuesday night, the low should jump down to about 35. We see this every year. It gets really cold, and then it gets nice, and it's going to get really cold again. And it'll do that a couple times.
And also, I'm not an idiot out there going 70 on the loop when it's icy and everything like that.
We're not calling our...
I'm smart. I'm not calling anybody an idiot. I'm just saying I'm not one of those people who do that.
You don't even do the speed limit on a clear day.
Yes, I do.
Everybody's going so fast. Well, when you go 28
we'll be right
and a
back
35...
after this word from Concho's Diamonds and Coins.
When it comes to unique pieces you can't find anywhere else, Concho's Diamonds and Coins is your one-stop shop. With over 24 years in the diamond and coin industry, Concho's Diamonds and Coins is West Texas's choice for diamonds, jewelry, coins, silver, and gold. Owner Bill Concho stands by his work and offers free consultations, including estate jewelry. Don't just trust anyone with your valuables. Come see the staff at Concho's at 1016 West Beauregard in San Angelo.
Thank you for watching the Live Daily News Show, the only locally owned news show in the Concho Valley.
Follow us on Facebook, X, and other social media platforms, and download the Sandra Live mobile app.
For the live team, I'm Tessa.